In today's video of ImpracticallyNoah Productions, we're going to teach you the differences between the Switch 1's SD card and the Nintendo Switch 2's SD card, and how you can back them up in case if you upgrade to a higher capacity, or if you need to get your device refurbished. Hello everyone, ImpracticallyNoah here, back again with another Nintendo Switch 2 related video. So today's topic is about, of course, the micro SD cards. Not just for the Nintendo Switch 2, but also the Nintendo Switch 1. Because if you just got into the Nintendo Switch ecosystem, but you don't prefer getting both models or both units, or you're not ready for spending a high price on Nintendo Switch 2, wherever you are. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the difference between the Nintendo Switch 1's micro SD card expansion and the Nintendo Switch 2's micro SD card expansion. They are completely different and are not cross-compatible with one another. Let's take a look. So on my desk, as you can see, I have a SanDisk Extreme 1TB micro SD XC card for my Nintendo Switch 1. On the right is the official branded Nintendo Switch 2's micro SD Express card by Samsung. Now, as you can see, I don't have the official branded Nintendo micro SD card for the Switch 1 because the branding doesn't really matter. There are universal micro SD cards available, such as SanDisk and Samsung. You can get either brand, or you can get the cheaper brand if you want to. Anyway, so the Nintendo Switch 1 is required to have a micro SD XC UHS 1 card, which goes up between 900 megabits write and 60 megabits read. The Nintendo Switch 2's micro SD Express card requires 900 megabits write and 600 megabits read. If you want to learn more about SD cards and micro SD card information, I will put a card up above our YouTube channel that explains more. So, another difference between them is the back. So, as you can see, if you exclude the bulge here from the SanDisk model, you can see that there's one set of row of pins for the SanDisk model or any UHS 1 micro SD card. And for the micro SD Express, there's 2 rows with one missing pin on the second row. Why would you include a second row of pins? Because micro SD Express is dedicated based on a computer peripheral component called PCI Express. If you don't know, those are expansion cards for a desktop computer, and they rely mostly on PCI Express Gen 3 as a minimum. And this is what the micro SD Express card is based on. My PCI Express 3.0 in 1x speed. Because PCI Express is multiple lanes and it's a lot of computer detail. I'm an IT guy, so I won't get into detail. But for the standard UHS 1 cards, they kind of rely as a SATA drive. SATA used to be the old peripheral we used for 2.5 inch or 3.5 inch drives for desktops or laptops. But now we move on to PCI Express with NVMe storage. Now, let's get into compatibility of SD card readers before you transfer or back up your SD card information on your Nintendo Switches. So before I begin showing you how to back up your Nintendo Switch SD card information to your computer or an external drive, we need to talk about SD card readers which can be compatible with both of them. In the previous video, I did a topic of SD card readers for my Kona Alliance Box Pro. Here is a generic brand from a cell phone manufacturer or cell phone distributor. This is a Ugreen 2-in-1 SD card reader. This SD card reader only supports standard size SD cards, so you need for micro SD cards this micro SD to SD adapter. But with these kind of adapters, they are commonly used with one row of pins. There could be a micro SD Express to SD Express adapter with the second row of pins, but I tried to find some and they're really hard to search correctly. There is one brand that I would trust for now, but we'll get into that in a second. I'm going to use the Ugreen as an example of compatibility. So I'm just going to remove my SD adapter, and I'm going to insert first my Nintendo Switch 1's micro SD card into the micro SD slot on my SD card reader. This SD card reader also has two USB ports, one male Type C and one male Type A. These are both USB 3 bandwidth. So on my left I have my portable monitor and plug in my laptop to it, and you'll see a demonstration of the transfer process. But I'm gonna now show you my laptop of compatibility first.
Alright everyone, I am on my laptop through my Clone Alliance Box Pro, and here is the Windows File Manager. To start off with, I'm going to use my Ugreen SD card reader for my Nintendo Switch 1's micro SD card to see if it can be compatible. So I'm going to plug it into my USB-A port on my laptop. My laptop is a Lenovo ThinkPad E16 Gen 2 Intel model. So as you can see, the SD card reader recognizes the UHS 1 SanDisk Extreme 1TB card. Here is what the file structure of the Nintendo folders for the Nintendo Switch is like. You have first, once it's recognized, a folder called Nintendo. Once you click on it, you have an album section, contents, and save. The album, for example, has extra and a serial number, I believe, and this is dedicated to saved replays in, for instance, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And once I go back, contents is the ID, the identification of your eShop downloads or registered. As you can see, the Place ID folder wasn't full of files, but if you scroll here in registered, these are basically your eShop purchases, I believe. Private and private 1, which is like a save or dedicated encryption, and save is save data for specific games. I believe this is for Smash Bros. As well. The Ugreen reader recognizes standard UHS 1 SD XC cards. If you don't know, the micro SD Express cards are also XC, or extended capacity, but of course it requires extra pins for more bandwidth. So now I'm gonna see if the Ugreen reader can recognize the SD Express card. Okay. USB drive G. Let me refresh. So it does recognize it, but you're limited with the bandwidth of the SD card's pins in the Ugreen adapter. So this is the Switch 2. As you can see, it loaded again. So let me just go through that file explorer. So I guess you can use backwards compatible UHS 1 pins to it, but I have a better option based on the bandwidth necessities for the SD Express. So this is the Switch 2's SD card. Same file structure, but of course it might be encrypted differently due to the hardware of the different hardwares of the Switch 1 and Switch 2. And of course, as you can see, this is a 256 gig model of the SD Express cards. It's, of course, after formatting or binary information, it's 238 gigabytes instead of 256. As you can see here, 202 gigs are free from it. So Nintendo, album, in case if they make a replay, save status as a Smash Bros. Title. Contents, place HID, I believe it's called. Then registered is your eShop downloads and the private folders or files, and save files. So again, this is compatible, but you're limited with the pin counts in the SD slots of the readers or your SD card slot if you have a laptop that does have an SD card slot. But there's a better option that can be compatible for those two formats together. Let's take a look at what I got to show you.
So, as we saw on my laptop, we know that with standard UHS 1 SD card readers, you can use them for SD Express cards. But again, you're limited with the bandwidth of UHS 1 SD card pins. So, for better bandwidth transmission to back up anything or insert any files into a SD Express card, what can you use that is really reliable for both type of SD formats? Well, you can get this online from any photographer store or Amazon. This is SanDisk's Pro lineup of SD card readers. This is the SanDisk Pro Reader SD Express Dual Card Reader. This is really durable. As you can see at the front here, you have a little clip thing to add to their expansion base of Pro products. But let's look at the front and the back. So at the front, you have your micro SD Express slot, as well as your standard size SD Express slot, and LED indication to see if anything is inserted, as well as a white status LED to know the recognized transfers. But also with the LEDs on the card slots, they would be red if nothing's inserted, or green when something is inserted. Side you have branding grill, like a grill kind of texture, George Foreman grill kind of texture. Here you have security screws to prevent it from somebody to open it to see the circuit board. The lock switch is actually recognized on like standard size SD cards. What it does is once you flip the switch, you can't write anything to your SD card. Here it's just like a hole for cooling, I believe, and here's your USB-C port, which is USB 3 Gen 2 10 gigabits per second. Now, I'm going to plug this into my laptop, and I'll show you the functionality of this. But you can use this for SD Express cards and standard UHS 1 cards as well. There is a UHS 2 and UHS 3 type of SD cards, but they're pretty uncommon to come by. And now we moved on to SD Express, I believe, for cameras, drones, and of course, the Nintendo Switch 2. So, let me plug this into my laptop, then we'll see the transfer process. But first, for what I use for backing up the SD card information of the Nintendo Switch 1 and Switch 2's SD cards, I use an external Seagate hard drive, which is 2 terabytes, which is enough because I only have a 1 terabyte SD card for my Switch 1. There is a 2 terabyte model of UHS 1 cards, but I have one for my tablet only, and that's for backing up my social media archives. You can use it for the Switch 1, but of course, who's going to use 2 terabytes to download eShop games anyway? So of course, this is the hard drive I'm going to use. I'm going to not reformat this, but I'm going to delete the folders and show you a fresh kind of backup. So let's get into the installation of the SanDisk Pro SD card reader. So I just inserted the USB-C to C cord to the reader, and it's now connected to my ThinkPad. So first off, you don't see the LED indication yet. What you have to do is either slot. What I'm going to do is put my Switch 1's SD card into the standard SD card adapter. Again, it's UHS 1 pins to the standard size SD slot, and the micro SD Express for the Switch 2 into the micro SD Express slot. This reader will work on my Colonial Alliance Box Pro, by the way, but you're only limited with just one storage option. So I'm going to insert the SD Express to it. You have to be very careful if it's aligned correctly. As you kind of saw, the pins are recognized and the LED indications are here. The white one, again, is for transfer information, and the red light means nothing's inserted, and the green light means something is inserted. I'm going to insert the Switch 1's SD card to the standard SD slot, and then you'll see it's can see it's not being recognized because it's not simultaneous throughput, probably due to the bandwidth for the SD Express card. I'm going to try one more time. Make sure with SD card adapters, this switch is on the up position, close to the S, if it's a SanDisk product. So I'm going to insert it one more time. I'm going to try and push it in a little bit. Let me try and unplug and replug. Kind of see here, going to unplug the cord for a second, then replug. And now, as you can see, still has a green, a red, and a white. So, one card at a time. This will work with UHS 1. Let me just eject the Samsung. It's buffering. So now, it's reverse. So, I'm going to insert the Samsung one again. So it's not like a spring mechanism with the microSD slot. But as you can see, again, one card at a time. Let's take a look at how to back it up.
For simplicity's sake, for time, we're just going to back up the Nintendo Switch 2's microSD Express card. Because, of course, if you have a higher capacity card with more information to it, it's going to take multiple hours. I'm just going to insert my external hard drive. Here is my SD Express card, and here is my external hard drive. So I'm just gonna, I did this last night of backing up the Switch 2 information. I'm gonna delete it. You can also back this up on your laptop's internal storage. If you have a secondary drive on it, which can be 2 terabytes or 4 terabytes or whatever capacity. Here's my Nintendo Switch 2 folder. So I do the transfers. I have my Nintendo Switch 1 folder here. I'm just gonna, so here's the hard drive section here. This is a Windows 11 laptop. This will also work with Windows 10 if you are still rocking them OS. So local disk is the SD card reader. See, 238 gigs. And Nintendo folder. You don't want to cut and paste. You want to copy and paste. Because if you cut and paste, your Switch 2 or Switch 1's SD card will go back to being an empty card. And that means when you play a Switch game, it has to restart making that folder structure. So here's a button to copy. And I'm back on the hard drive. And I'm going to paste right now. As you can see, we're limited by the bandwidth coming from the external hard drive, the USB port, and also the SD card readers. But as you can see, I'm copying around 36 gigabytes of files from the Switch 2's microSD Express card, and now the transfer is complete. So I'm just going to show you how to properly eject the SD cards in the Nintendo Switch 1 or 2. It's basically the same thing for both of them, but I'm just going to do it for the Switch 2. Hold the power button, either on the Switch 1 or Switch 2, whatever you have. Then you have options of sleep mode or power options. Go to power options, go to power off. Wait a couple seconds. Now, once it's fully powered off, without accidentally pressing the home button, you can eject your SD card, like so. And that's the video of how to back up your Nintendo Switch 1 or Nintendo Switch 2's SD card information in case of failure or capacity upgrades. Hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you all in the next video. This is ImpracticallyNoah saying goodbye, and thanks for watching.